Good morning, everybody. I would like to open this meeting and start with the first session. And that session is about a deep dive into 3 support structures that we have for innovation. And so we have 3 speakers that all come from the same task force here at the agency. They will give you information about these different support structures, which are open to everybody, I would say. And the first speaker today is Thomas Ballotti. I know Thomas when he was a trainee when I joined the agency. He then moved to the industry, but missed us so deeply that he came back, and he's now working, I think, in the SME office. Is that correct? Yeah. And Thomas will give us a presentation about how EMA supports small and medium-sized enterprise. Thomas, you've got the floor.
Thank you, Ivo. So small and medium enterprises represent 99% of all businesses in the European Union, employing more than 100 million people in all economic sectors. They are a key player in health ecosystem by being a major source of innovation. Indeed, if the large majority of medicine are marketed by large or intermediate-sized companies, data shows that SMEs, alongside with academia, are at the origin of most innovation. In terms of number, in the last 20 years, 140 medicinal products for human use and 40 medicinal products for veterinary use developed by SMEs have been approved by the EMA. So therefore, to support SMEs is to promote innovation. However, by nature, SMEs face challenges that are different from those faced by large companies, from navigating the regulatory framework to access to finance. So to address the specific needs of the SMEs in the pharmaceutical sector, the EU SME regulation has foreseen the creation of the SME office in the EMA to act as a dedicated contact point, provide administrative, regulatory, and procedural support, ensure that the communication is easy with SMEs, especially during pre- and post-authorization procedure development, and to engage with EU bodies and industry stakeholders to promote dialogue on the need of SMEs. So the first step for an SME is to apply for an SME status to the SME office of the EMA. This application is reviewed based on criteria that are laid down in the SME definition of the European Commission. And once this status has been granted, the SME will have access to a broad range of services, going from regulatory assistance to different fee incentives or translation assistance, or briefing meeting to engage dialogue in terms of regulatory strategy. So as I said, the definition of an SME in the European Union is based on certain criteria that are defined in the EU SME definition. So there are 3 main criteria to be defined as an SME. The first is the company must have less than 250 employees. And the 2 others are that the annual turnover must be below or equal to 50 million, or the balance sheet total must be below or equal to 43 million. Depending on the exact financial data and on the size, a different size will be assigned. It can be a micro, small, or medium-sized enterprise. Why is it important? It's important because it will then affect the kind of incentives that the company will have access to. Please also bear in mind that when applying, the whole ownership structure of the company will be taken into account. And by that, I mean the whole group will be taken into account. And then different categories for the SME will be assigned, like autonomous, partner, or link. The detail of the process to apply, as well as the documents required, are available on the EMA website on a dedicated webpage for the support to SMEs. So once the SME status will be assigned, the SME can contact the SME office for regulatory assistance. So how does it come? The SME can submit their question either via a dedicated mailbox or via a dedicated helpline. If the question is a single question or a procedural question or an administrative question or a general question, whether it be on the SME definition and on the incentives, or really, as I said, procedural question like how to apply for scientific advice, how do I connect to IRIS, what are the latest guidelines to consider. Then generally we respond by phone or via email. But there is also the possibility to discuss on the full regulatory strategy for one or several products. In this case, the SME office will organize an SME briefing meeting, which is a platform for early and informal dialogue. It's an interdisciplinary meeting, meaning that we will invite all the EMA colleagues and experts that we think will be relevant to address your question. It's 90 minutes, it's free of charge, and we try to organize it not more than 2 months after the request, depending, of course, on the availability of colleagues. We also engage into training events to ensure that the SME have access to the latest regulatory and scientific information as well as the latest guideline. So the SME office created a SME user guide, which is a user-friendly guide to navigate through all the regulatory framework of the European Union for pharmaceutical, going from the registration procedure, scientific advice, or really all the process. We organize Info Day here at EMA, where we do trainings on the most relevant and important procedures for SMEs, like scientific advice, on topic like clinical trial regulation or shortages. We have launched an SME newsletter that everybody can subscribe to, where we put all the latest information in terms of fee regulation, HTA, the new guidelines, the consultation, the next event held at EMA, to be held at EMA. And we engage with all our stakeholders during conferences, a bit to open the dialogue, engage both with private and public stakeholder. And once the SME will have its status assigned, the SME will be included in the SME register that is public and open on the EMA website, the goal being to help SMEs to find partners. The translation of all the product information during a marketing authorization can be a significant financial burden for the small companies. This is why the agency provides free of charge translation of the product information into all EU language in the context of an EU marketing authorization. This, of course, excluding Icelandic and Norwegian, which is still the responsibility of the applicant to provide. Please note that this assistance is only for initial marketing authorization, so not for variation or renewal, and it is only applicable, of course, for the centralized procedure, so no MRP and DCP. Concretely, so during the marketing authorization application, the SME office will send the procedural detail to the applicant generally 1 month before the CVMP opinion. At the opinion, the English PI will be sent to the EU Translation Center in Luxembourg, who will then proceed to translate in all EU languages. This translation will be checked by the national competent authorities, and then will be provided to the European Commission to go with the European Commission decision. So to support the financial part for the SME, a wide range of fee incentives are available to the SME. It goes from a fee reduction for the scientific advice and inspection to a fee deferral until the outcome for the marketing authorization application. Please note that the deferral for the marketing authorization application, so it's a deferral, it's not an exemption, meaning that the SME will still have to pay, but instead of paying at the submission, they will pay at the outcome, whether the outcome is positive or negative. Please also note that in order to benefit from these fee incentives, the SME will have to hold a valid SME status by the time the fee is due, and I'm going to dig a bit more into that. So from the 1st of January 2025, a new fee regulation became effective, which means all the current provisions that I already talked a bit about are still applying, so nothing changed in terms of the content of the incentives. What is changing then is the way to proceed to payment and the modality of payment. So indeed, SMEs must hold a valid status with the EMA, or at least have submitted the renewal of the SME status before its expiry, but what is called the applicable fee level date of the procedure that we are applicable for. For example, for the scientific advice, so the prepayment is due for the scientific advice. So when the SME will apply for a scientific advice, the SME will have to hold a valid status, a valid SME status before or by the date the scientific advice the application is done. So I really encourage the SMEs to contact us well in advance of submitting any kind of procedure to check with us if the SME status is effective, so there is no bad surprise by the time of the application is done. There is a Q&A on the EMA website that is dedicated for the veterinary procedure, so I encourage you to consult it, to have a look at it. And you can always contact whether the dedicated fee mailbox or the SME mailbox. We will be more than happy to answer to your question. So in collaboration with the European Commission, the EMA worked to launch the EU Biotech and Biomanufacturing Act. This takes place in the context of the new Biotech Hub. And so from the Biotech and Biomanufacturing Hub, the aim is to support companies, particularly startup and SMEs, in bringing innovative biological products to the market, and it helps identify support at the EU level. So in this hub, you will have easy and accessible information on the relevant EU legislation, the regulation, the centralized procedures, but also financing opportunities and business support network, how to scale up the production. So it's a very complete and easy, accessible information. So 2025 will mark the 20th anniversary of the EMA SME regulation. To celebrate this important milestone, the SME office will organize a stakeholders roundtable with representatives, so from industry association, the European Commission, the European Medicine and Regulatory Network, public and private investors, and life science incubators. This will be the occasion to highlight the achievement on the SME regulation and what concrete impact it had on the SMEs. We will discuss EU policy initiatives supporting SME, past and future, and it will be the occasion altogether to discuss about the future opportunities and challenges for SME in the European Union. So a time of exchange and reflection all together, and it will be on the 17th of October 2025. So just as in conclusion, we really encourage the SMEs to contact us, to send us any kind of question they have. We generally said, so we always have the question, when is a good time in development to contact us? I would say the earlier, the better. If the question is not for us, we will readdress it to our colleagues, whether to ITF or to scientific advice. So please don't hesitate to take advantage of the support we are offering to support innovation and SMEs. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Thomas, for that very clear and comprehensive presentation on SMEs. And as we can see, it's an old tool. I trust it has developed over the years. So we'll have opportunities for questions after we've listened to all three presentations. I would like to now hand over to the next speaker, which is Dr. Oriana Blanqui, sitting next to me. She's a seconded national expert to the European Agency, and she will present on the Innovation Task Force, which is an important tool. It's been mentioned yesterday already. But also her activities are focusing on the EMA EU Innovation Group, on which we had a presentation yesterday. And she co-chairs the Borderline and Classification Group. Oriana, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Ivo. And I will just wait for the presentation to come on the screen. Yes, thank you so much. Okay, indeed. I will present today the Innovation Task Force briefing meeting, so what they are, what you can expect from them, how to apply. But before diving into the topic, I have one slide to put it a little bit into context, and apologies if this is already very well known from you. The EMA main mission is to promote animal and human health, and its goals or its roles revolves around four main pillars that you have here on the slide. The first one, which is probably the best known one, is the evaluation of marketing authorization applications, but it's also here to monitor the safety of medicines across their life cycle, to ensure that reliable information is provided to the patients and the healthcare professional on medicines. And the last one, which is probably the one that is the most important for us here, is to facilitate the development of medicinal products, and in particular of innovative products. And here I would really like to highlight that one of the key strategic goals of the EMA is to promote the development of innovative medicines and ensure the uptake of innovation in medicines development. The EMA is not working in silo, it's embedded in a network, what we call the European Medicines Regulatory Network, that is comprised of the national competent authorities, so the regulatory agencies that operate at the national level, and the Commission. And you will see that this is particularly true for the ITF. Now you have here the timeline, so it's basically the timeline of the medicinal development from the regulatory perspective. In order to ensure or to promote innovation, the EMA has established these three entry doors that you see on the top of the timeline: the SME office, academia, which are dedicated to a particular type of stakeholders, and the Innovation Task Force briefing meeting that are dedicated to a specific type of medicines or product, you will see. So let's focus now on the Innovation Task Force. What are they? They are meetings that allow developers of innovative products to have an informal dialogue with regulators. These meetings are informal, meaning that, or maybe I start with the fact that they're meant to be held at an early stage. And what we mean by early stage, because it's kind of variable, for us, we rather think about a preclinical stage. So end of proof of concept, preclinical stage. And the meeting will be informal. We often talk about brainstorming type of meeting. So because it's an early stage, the package is not yet fully ready, and the advice provided during this meeting is quite high level. So it's important to say that it's not meant to replace a scientific advice, but more as an intermediate step towards the scientific advice. Concretely, it's a 1 hour 30 meeting. So usually the way it works is that the stakeholder will present a presentation of about 15-20 minutes. There is no strict rules, where he will present the product, address all the topics for discussion, and then we will take the topics one by one with the experts. And importantly for you, this is a free of charge meeting. Now I was saying we are discussing during this meeting innovative product. What I mean by product is quite wide, actually. It can be a medicinal product, but it's also any technology or method that is integrated into medicines development. And I provided here a few examples so that it makes it a little bit more concrete. On the left, we have some examples of emerging therapies that we have seen in 2024. So we have seen quite a number of cell and gene therapy. We have seen also, in particular from the veterinary application, alternative to antimicrobials, and also some nanomedicines. We also discuss emerging technologies. So that can be, for instance, digital technology. I'm thinking, for instance, about wearables that are used to measure clinical outcome or certain endpoints in the context of clinical trial. We have also seen some development on manufacturing devices for the manufacturing of cell therapy, and also some technology to monitor viral contamination during the manufacturing of a product. And regarding the methods, we have had, this is a very important topic, and we are really happy to have seen a high number of such a method last year, novel approach methodology, which are all these techniques that are implemented in medicines development to reduce or replace animal use. So, for instance, that can be a liver on a chip that is used to assess liver toxicity during medicines development. And that can also be, just as an example, this is not an exhaustive list, but just to give you a good idea, some novel biomarker or endpoints. And this is actually very often, last year actually we had some ITF meeting on digital technologies associated with the endpoints. Okay. Who are the experts on the regulatory side who are joining the ITF meetings? We have, of course, EMA participation, but so basically the ITF is not a standing group. It's really the participation is ad hoc depending on the ITF meeting or the topic of the ITF meeting. We have participation from the whole EMA. That will be based really on the topic of the product, so the therapeutic area, for instance, or the type of methodology, but also depending on the questions that are addressed. And we are also inviting anyone from the network, so any assessor or regulator associated with the national competent authority. And upon request, this is the last point, it's very rare, but just for your information, we have the possibility, if the applicant wants, to invite some international regulators. We had, for instance, some participation from the FDA or the Swiss Medical Agency. Yeah. This is a snapshot of our activities last year. On the left, you have the number of requests that we received and the number of ITF meetings organized to give you a more concrete idea. We received a total of 70 requests, 59 on human development and 11 on veterinary developments. And out of these 70 ITF meeting requests, we organized a total of 34 ITF meetings, 30 for human and 4 for veterinary developments. And you might wonder what happens to the ones that are declined. In fact, and I think this is also one of the key messages I would like to give you, the ITF is acting as an early point of contact. So in case the request is not suitable for an ITF, and this was also the message from Thomas, we are communicating a lot between us, academia, SME, but also with scientific advice. So we will refer your request to the right entry door. So in this case, it might have been referred to scientific advice, to SME, academia colleague, or scientific advice at the national level. Sometimes we had also referrals for a formal classification to ensure that this is actually in our remit. Now in the middle, we have the type of applicant that we see during ITF meetings. So anyone is welcome to apply. Last year, half of the applicants were SMEs, but we also had a number of non-for-profit organizations, whether it's academia or EU-funded consortia, and also 5 ITF meetings with large pharmaceutical companies. And in the others, then we have a variety of applicants. It can be, for instance, a SME that does not fall into the SME status as described by Thomas. It can be a consortium of big pharma or anything else. Then on the right, you can see the topics and questions that we have discussed during the ITF meeting. So it's mostly scientific questions on the package. Half of them are preclinical, which makes sense because applicants that come to us are normally at the preclinical stage. We also have, for the remaining 50%, half on manufacturing and inspection and CMC in general, and the other half on clinical question, although this is still high level at that stage. And the remaining can be on some procedural question or regulatory question, for instance, a classification, although this is, again, informal advice. Now, how to apply? I put the link so you can type EMA innovation. You have all the information, but this is very simple. You just send us a request form. It's quite short. It's more or less 3 pages that you need to fill in with very general information. You can send it to either the general ITF mailbox or, if you're a veterinary developer, the ITF vet dedicated mailbox. We will then assess your request. We will liaise if we have any doubt with our colleague from SME or academia. And then if we think that that might be suitable for an ITF meeting, we will ask you to complete a briefing document, which is a larger document, which is made on the same format than the one asked for scientific advice. So there is no duplication in case we need to refer you to a scientific advice. Then we will reassess the briefing document. And if we think that this is suitable, we will simply organize the 1 hour 30 briefing meeting. So I think this is it for my side. I hope this was clear, but I will be happy to take questions during the Q&A.
Thank you very much, Oriana, for that presentation. again, extremely clear in explanation of an important tool that supports innovation. For the last presentation, I would like to hand over to Dr. Ralph Harold, Senior Scientific Officer here at the European Medicines Agency. Ralph is the head of the EMA's Regulatory Science and Academia workstream, part of Regulatory and Science and Innovation Task Force, and he coordinates research and engagement with researchers and developers from the academic sector and not-for-profit organizations. Ralph, please, you have the floor.
Thanks very much, Ivo. That's very kind. I'm excited to be joining you here. And my suggestion is to consider this, what we're talking about, as engagement with academic researchers and developers in a mutual fashion. And what I mean with this will hopefully become clear at the end. The slides will be available. Links can be clicked. And if I could also have the clicker, please, then we can advance. So the purpose is to introduce you to recent changes that we have made and offers that are available. And as mentioned, we are interested also to engage with you, since the EMA has scientific issues and questions and regulatory science matters that we would like to co-develop and see how we can work together with academic researchers and developers. And we do this in a framework that is almost 10 years old that structures the interactions into information, consultation, involvement, cooperation, and participation. And I think the first element is already very important, since we are often seeing that academic researchers are not very much aware of the information that is provided. And colleagues, you made the same point. So there is an element that it would be great if you could consider to multiply how to best use the various information sources that we offer at the European Medicines Agency. There's a lot. There are databases, there's newsletters and information services that can be subscribed. I think I would like to focus now on our interactions with teams of such academic researchers and developers. And there are a couple of topics that come up repeatedly that I've just put here to map them out. We're discussing often regulatory science. I'll explain in a second what this is. There are discussions about collaboration in projects in the pre-competitive space. We are working with funding organizations to provide an opportunity that helps the veterinary and human medicines topics to come forward. There's interactions. Oriane, already you had it on the map. There are briefing meetings. We offer incentives for academic researchers and not-for-profit organizations to come for scientific advice. This always also be coming back in a second. And there's a lot also on communication and training, where we get contacted on specific questions. We have a web interface and try to answer and channel information by interested parties. And last but not least, there are always these events that get recorded and that benefit from multiplication and dissemination. If anyone can join, I think we can improve the system. Now, I mentioned that we need to briefly look at regulatory science, and my colleagues mostly talked about the upper part in this slide, which is that it is about generating evidence for veterinary medicinal products. Please apologize. The graphic here is from Human Medicines. I didn't have a better one, but consider it as something that you can best map yourselves to the veterinary medicines development. But of course, the development of products follows a certain pathway and successive steps. And these steps make use, and that's the bottom part, of certain methods for investigating properties of the product, of the use, certain studies that are being done. And in the bottom part, we see a number of issues that are particularly useful to be worked together with academic researchers and developers. So it is about the regulatory science research. It's about looking into how we can improve the methods to facilitate, accelerate, make the research for products more robust. So just two more slides. We have developed this into a strategic approach whereby we are looking into what are these issues in regulatory science. We are shortlisting them, and you will see in a second what the veterinary regulatory science issues are. These issues are presented to funders. We are engaging researchers also in a platform that will soon be starting, and then try to translate these outputs into regulatory guidance, but also changes in research and development practices. And these research needs include a number of chapters. The ones that we have as a draft published in November on the right-hand side include research needs to advance specifically animal health and the regulation of veterinary medicines. And the bullet points give you some topics under which you find specific research questions. And we hope that there are academic research groups that are interested on their own and with the agency to look into this. We can provide some support, and this is an invitation for those research groups and research organizations to look into our currently open tender call. We are looking for organizations that can deliver research studies, and this tender is open until the 30th of April, and it works like this. The organizations present their competencies and capacities and how they could address certain research topics that are in the various lots. And then over the next years, specific studies will be commissioned as part of this framework tender. I have extracted a few of the veterinary research topics on the right-hand side in the blue box. And you see it's mentioning observational research, prospective, retrospective studies, identification of data sources, and so on. But please do read it completely, because this is just an extract, and I hope, Ivo, I'm doing it justice, but it's not the full picture. Please have a look if you're interested, and mind the deadline. This would be really important. We also are partners in European partnerships, which in their own sense are funders, are organizing research projects. And if you don't know, perhaps you can also follow what these partnerships are doing, in particular the one on AMR One Health and the partnership on animal health and welfare. So coming back to what we are doing at the agency, we're really looking at academic researchers and developers as a strategic partner and want to create this virtuous cycle of mutual exchange. We're providing regulatory support. On the other hand, we want to mention to the researchers what are the knowledge gaps, where we think that the researchers from the academic sector can help us to fill these knowledge gaps. And we call this then the collaboration on areas of research in regulatory science. Now, how do we have these mutual discussions? One way to do it is in an academia briefing meeting. We have introduced this only recently, and these briefing meetings are very low hurdle and low entry meetings. Not much preparation is necessary. We want truly to understand the challenges that researchers are having, not just in a particular scientific aspect, but also on terms of how to set up their research competencies, how to bring in capacities for certain aspects of the research, how to have a multidisciplinary team that can look at the questions from a broader perspective. We're happy to have already listened to, I think, a small number of veterinary academic research groups who have contacted us. Some really very interesting, having an anti-cancer medicinal product developed for companion animals, first in the companion animals, perhaps before going to humans. And these are exciting topic areas where we are really interested to see what we can do. And it's the beginning of a journey, obviously, as very nicely shown in other slides. So the idea of these briefing meetings is to be relatively quick and short after a request, to be helping in mapping and understanding, for us to ask questions, to understand the research group's impact and what they can do, and perhaps then discuss some follow-up activities. Please write us if you're interested, and we will have a look what we can do. I want to finish with the next two slides. This one here is on the veterinary scientific advice, and thanks to the new fee regulation, the advice can be fully incentivized for certain research entities and certain research requests. And it comes with a number of implementing aspects, and these are laid down in the working arrangements for the fee regulation. There's also a general questions and answer. The main message is that before you would go to a veterinary scientific advice submission, please do a verification There's a process that has to be done before the advice is being submitted. We're updating the web pages to not just have many links here, but really one paragraph on the academia webpage that gives you the full picture of how to do it. Essentially, in this verification of compliance with the requirements, we are looking at the entity. Is the entity not controlled by a for-profit organization, for example? It requires a couple of checkpoints, and then we also look at the public and animal health merit of the advice request. We hope to see a good number of such requests, so to make best use of this opportunity, please look at it or address also questions to me in the coffee break. Lastly, this was the idea to present what we can do together in a mutual exchange, primarily with academic researchers and developers. And I think I brought you full circle now after going into the detail about what are the topics of interest of our exchange, and just want to finish up with other opportunities to interact that are perhaps not yet fully used. And we definitely want to hear even more comments on guideline consultations, and also to make best use of the information of medicines that we have. There's a lot from workshops to be taken away. The Innovation Task Force has already been mentioned as one of the important entry points. There's also good use of the question webpage that we have. But then let me finish by saying we invite academic researchers to register either their research organization or themselves with specific research interests. The link here takes you to a web form, and then we would look at the researcher and the interests, and then provide you proactively with targeted information material about these points above, so to help you a little bit in keeping connected and up to date. And I think that finishes what I wanted to bring in today to support the idea of innovation and doing this together with academic researchers. Thank you, Ivo. Thank you all.
No, thank you very much. And I would like to thank all speakers, Oriane and Thomas and Rolf, for excellent presentations and for keeping to time, because we now have approximately 18 minutes for question and answers. I would like to start with a few questions so that people can think about their questions, people online and in the room. Thomas, for you, what happens if an SME moves into a bigger organization? Because we know that developments take place in SMEs, and then either the organizations buy the technology or sometimes they buy the company. So you've got a whole lot of incentives. I trust that they will disappear. Can you explain what happens?
So there are two possibilities. Either a small company develop a product, and this product is bought by a larger company. In this case, the SME status will remain for the small company, but all the incentives for the product will disappear indeed. And the second possibility is if the small company is bought by a large pharmaceutical company, indeed, at this point, so the SME status will be lost, and then all kind of incentives will disappear indeed.
Oriane, you've mentioned the number of ITF meetings, and it's really also ongoing. But has there ever been an evaluation of the actual impact? So maybe it's not fair to ask you, but have they ever looked into how many of these ITF meetings actually lead into submissions of real products, and how it's being perceived by the participants in those meetings, the usefulness?
Yeah, no, thanks. It's an important question, but for now, we do not track the products that are discussed in the ITF. It's difficult also because it's really early stage, so it will take years and years before it reaches the marketing authorization. But what we see sometimes is that the following steps, when they go for scientific advice, we will be aware of that, or when this happens sometimes because it's innovative, sometimes, let's say, a guideline needs to be updated, and so we will refer them to a specific working party. And in that case, we can follow up. So this is what we follow up, but not yet until the marketing authorization. Maybe a second point is that last year, we launched a survey on how the advice was perceived from the applicant. It will soon be published, but the feedback we received was quite positive in that it really influences the regulatory strategy. So we see that, at least from their feedback, there is an impact on their development.
No, thank you for that. And Rolf, on academia, because we do know that academia plays a role as well, certainly in the fundamental and applied research that may end up into product. What's the experience on the human side? Because we don't, as an agency, we don't have that much interaction on the veterinary side with academia. Is it really more on the human side, and where does it have an impact? And what can we learn from it?
Studies have been done on many centrally and nationally authorized medicinal products where academic researchers were sponsors or co-sponsors as concerns clinical trials. Many of these have been used as supportive, some even as pivotal evidence. There's no concrete number, but we have some experience from the use of such studies in specific exercises a while back for looking into studies on pediatric medicines, where this was a field where there was high research activity by learned societies in this field, and then there was a catch-up regulatory activity where such studies were submitted and new indications were granted, product information was updated. We also have a good number of scientific advice requests that come from academic researchers and developers or organizations typically. And these scientific advice requests in the human domain do concern clinical trials often, but not only. They also concern non-clinical research, how to design studies, interpret them, often toxicology models. They also concern pharmaceutical quality. We see a number of academic researchers who develop highly innovative products, desktop synthesizing type of products, also in particular advanced therapy medicinal products. And this is why we're currently looking to prepare for a future system in which there is a dedicated support scheme for such academic research and not-for-profit organizations. This is foreseen in the new pharmaceutical legislation, but already in the past years, and now we're trying to provide a layer of coordination. The latest experience is from two academia-directed initiatives. The agency has started almost 3 years ago an initiative to support academic developers of advanced therapy medicinal products. Almost exclusively, these are CAR T-cell products for the time being. We have selected a small number, half a dozen, I think, of these, and are providing not only scientific advice as support, but we help the academic developers with regulatory steps. There's some hand-holding and partnering advice, etc. So it's additional activities on the side of the EMA that we hope help then the academic researchers and developers either to mature and valorize this asset they have so that it may be taken over, or even consider themselves to be marketing authorization, or this is to come. We don't see that yet, but there's therefore a substantial spectrum both in the domains of research, non-clinical quality and clinical, but also in the types of medicine and even the regulatory engagement. So I think this is a further area that is a good model, and we hope to equally support this for interested veterinary medicinal products. Do you see this as well as an area that is growing?
I'm open to to every possibility, which will increase. No, thank you. I'm looking now in the room, and I've got 2 questions already. I'll start on that end.
Good morning, Marco Hoyer, MSD Animal Health. Just a comment to Ivo's question on whether this is monitored or how it could be monitored that the Innovation Task Force has been engaged. There's a section in an e-application form for new marketing authorizations where the scientific advice is asked, and perhaps that can be extended for an information section on the Innovation Task Force. And then I have a question to Oriane. There's a relatively low number of in Innovation Task Force meeting requests for veterinary companies. Is this because the procedure as such is not that well known yet, or is it because there are not enough innovative ideas from the veterinary sector, or is it both?
So I don't really have the answer, but I suppose that also in terms of number, so maybe Ivo actually can help me there, but I think that also in terms of marketing authorization, vet versus human, already there is not proportionate. So I believe that already there is less in general vet development compared to human one. So I don't think it's related to the innovation. In fact, very often the vet is, at least on certain topic, vet is leading in terms of innovation. So I wouldn't say that the vet side is not innovative enough. Maybe also, I don't know, but it might be also because ITF is less well known in the vet side. So that's what I can say, but I don't have the answer.
No, I think that you made a good point that proportionally, when you look at the number of applications and positive opinions on the human side versus the veterinary side, there's a big difference there. And maybe indeed the innovation power overall, with the money behind it, is less on the veterinary side. I think that could be a factor as well. I had a question behind that screen because Elsa, I couldn't even recognize you.
Thank you. Yes, Elsa Vecino from Access VetMed. I have a question or more a curiosity. Perhaps you cannot help me, Mr. Balotti, but I've seen it also in Slido, is about the criteria which is set up for SMEs and especially the financial criteria. I understand this is set up in the regulation of 2005, but it comes from 2003, if I know it. And my question is, how is this criteria evolving, especially as regards to the turnover? Because as far as I am aware, it has not evolved since 2003. Not even considering the inflation. And we have a number of companies in our association that were fitting and were even part of this SME office some years ago. But of course, after 20 years and because of the inflation, they have lost the status, not because of big growth, but simply because of organic growth. And I know you may not be the responsible for the response, but maybe you know if there are talks about adapting these criteria. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for your question. It is indeed an important matter that we discuss more and more about. So we are aware of this matter that with the inflation, that the criteria might not be up to date as there were when the regulation was drafted. Now there is no revision in itself of the threshold that we are aware of. However, there are talks with the Commission, with DG, on creating a new category, which will be the mid-size and mid-caps. So I don't have the number in mind right now. I know that this discussion is happening. Unfortunately, I cannot give you any timeline, but I can tell you that we are aware of this matter, and there are discussions ongoing on trying, yes, to create a new category of SMEs to try to up the maximum threshold for the SME definition.
Okay, Peter Jan.
Yes, good morning. Peter Jan Serijn from Animal Health Europe. For two small questions for Mrs. Blanqui. One is that I understood that the applicant, that there are no restrictions with regards to the applicant of an ITF. So Animal Health Europe as an association could launch a topic. which is nice, I think, and would then, for example, and making a bridge also to the most popular online comment, with regards to topics, are there restrictions with regards to topics? Like, for example, the regulatory acceptance of a tool that could be used by different pharmaceutical companies, could that be a topic? Or the medical devices for veterinary use, could that be a topic as well? So, thank you very much.
So there is some restriction in the sense that if it's about a medical device, this is out of the scope of the EMA, so we wouldn't take it. Now, if it's about the regulatory acceptance of a specific, I don't know, a device or something, or I don't know, a tool, then for sure, just if you have a doubt, I cannot provide a specific answer, but in general, of course, this is accepted. This is, in fact, the goal of the ITF, so yes, please go ahead. And worst case, we will refer you to the right entry door or the right, I don't know, national competent authority for medical device or notified body.
Yeah, there's a quite, I would like to change to some questions in the chat, but I was going to say the same. The scope, of course, determines whether something is relevant for an ITF on veterinary medicinal products. I see that the one question that had most votes on my screen here, at least, is indeed about medical devices. We know that medical devices are not being covered by the agency, not under the veterinary medicines regulation. Veterinary, different situation on the human side, as we are all aware of. There may be one exception, and that is if a medical device, let's say a diagnostic kit, is being used in combination with a veterinary medicinal product, where it is essential to set the right diagnosis before you start the treatment. And that would be suitable for ITF, but that would be product specific and then by a company, so not by an association. I think that's the fair thing to say. So with that, I hope I've handled all the questions on diagnostic assays and medical devices. Because there's another one here on procedure guideline for developing innovative veterinary diagnostic kits. There is a demand for veterinary diagnostic kits. Let me be quite clear about it. If we look at how do we curb issues with antimicrobial resistance, one of the essential elements is very likely going to be in the future that you can do a bedside or a pen-side test that immediately gives you an answer on what are the antibiotics you should not use and what is the best option for choice there. So I think that is the type of development that we will see, and where we need to put up a regulatory framework in combination probably with the antibiotics that can be used. And this is in the regulatory science strategy as well, and also in our work plan to look indeed on the veterinary and the human side at this type of tests that could help us in controlling AMR more. Next question. Would ITF consider publishing high-level summaries of 3Rs, specifically replacement methods related work? This information and level of transparency would be beneficial for progression in the development of non-animal methods. Oriana, I think it goes to you.
Yes. So number one, I will start with saying that all the information discussed within the ITF is strictly confidential. So no confidential information will never get out of an ITF meeting. And it's important because we would really like to get information, including on 3Rs, a new approach methodology. So I just would like to reassure you that no confidential information, if you present the data within an ITF meeting, will get out. Now, we can provide some high-level or trends analysis, and in fact, this is something we have done. It's not yet published, but I would like to refer you to two papers or documents. Number one, we just published a new horizon scanning on new approach methodology, which is published on our website. I don't know if I can provide the link maybe in the what is the best, but just check our website, new approach methodology horizon scanning report, and we are going to publish, this will be published, I don't yet have the deadline, but it has been accepted, an overview of all the 3R related development that we have seen in ITF meeting, in business pipeline meeting, and in scientific advice. So this gives a good overview of the trends, but of course there is no confidential information. So just check out our website. We will advertise it once it's published.
Okay, thank you for that. And then there's one question here for you, Thomas. Criteria for an SME have never been adjusted, like number of employees turnover. In the US, for example, a small business is defined as having fewer than 500 employees. So question here is, are the SME requirements still up to date?
I think we addressed this question just before, but saying that there are no revision plan, but there are discussion with the Commission to create a new categories of SME. Okay, regarding the pipeline portfolio meeting with EMA, how many meetings does EMA typically hold, and what are the specific requirements for an applicant to apply? We had a bit of that discussion yesterday. I don't think there's, in principle, a limit to the number of pipeline meetings, but we are looking for the companies that have indeed a significant portfolio in order to have these pipeline meetings be efficient. And I've been instructed from that side that that's my last question, but Oriana, you want to add on that?
No, sorry, I just wanted to also mention for the business pipeline, the portfolio and technology meetings, that large company can still apply for Q3, Q4 meetings until the 1st of April. And the call for expression of interest is also on the website.
Okay. Clinical trials again.
No, something different this time. On your ITF meetings, it is indeed surprising that there is not a very high frequency of inquiries, but we all know that there is also the national competent authorities who basically have to give advice to applicants. Do you have any overview, or is there any collaboration on that to adjust? So how many companies go rather to national competent authorities to inquire for advice rather than to the ITF meetings? And that may also lead to the value of these things. Of course, is it really considered valuable? So do you have any information on that?
So we are closely collaborating with the national competent authorities. And in fact, yesterday there was a presentation by my colleague Valentina Cordo on the EU Innovation Network. So it's the network of the innovation offices at the national level, which is the equivalent of the ITF and the ITF, and the EMA. So we regularly meet on a monthly basis, and we have more or less, so we are trying to investigate a little bit the activities. We are not systematically tracking everything, but we are in contact, and it might be that some requests at the national level are then forwarded to us. So there is a link, and we are in contact. So I do not think that the small amount of requests is due to the fact that the requests go at the national level, because if needed, they will be forwarded to us.
Raffaele, last question, and then I close.
Sorry. Raffaele Bruno Zoetis. So it's about the ATF, but I would like to link to what we were discussing yesterday about removal of unnecessary obstacle in the legislation. But I need to first make a parallel with other type of problems. For example, if we have an administrative problem caused by the regulation, it's very easy for the industry to present this in the public domain and to bring this to the attention of the EMA or the European Commission via trade association. It's also sometimes possible to do that for regulatory obstacle to innovation when they are very well known to everybody. Yesterday we made some examples. I don't want to mention again the one that we discussed yesterday, but even GMP of IVP is a common problem. Sometimes, however, innovation is blocked by very specific problems that are specific to a company, to a project, and there are no channels to bring this to the attention of the institution that are in charge of interpreting the legal requirements. So that comes to my question. In your slide, you show that ITF can be attended by EMA experts, national authorization, and even international regulatory authorities. Is it possible to invite the European Commission as well?
Yeah, it is actually. We have had participation from the Commission, so it is.
So we can ask, please invite the European Commission.
In that sense, you can still try. We will see if it's possible.
Well, can we explore that?
You can still try, and I cannot give you, because I'm not exactly sure what you're referring to. But again, I mean, if you're encountering a regulatory challenge to a very specific product, it's not because it's not a big product that we will not investigate it. So for sure, apply, and we will invite all the experts. And if possible, if EC accepts us also, yes, we can invite the EC. We have had regular participation this year from the EC.
Give it a try, Raffaele. That's the answer that I just.
If the Australian authority might join, I don't see why. I mean, European authority.
Okay, as I said, I would like to close this session and thank you again for your presentations and for answering the questions. And I would like to move on to the last presentation of the Innovation Day, which will be industry experience. So I'd like to ask Klaas to come here, and then Klaas will present on actual experience with one of the new tools that was introduced in the Veterinary Regulation 2019-6, which is experience with vaccine antigen master file and vaccine platform technology master file authorization. He has presented this also at TOPRA in September in the Rotterdam meeting, but it has progressed now, so we're expecting some new insights into that and a real success story. Klaas works in MSD Animal Health. Please, Klaas, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you all. Thank you for inviting me and sharing an industry perspective. As Ivo said, I'm from MSD Animal Health. My main focus are the poultry vaccines, so that's why you might see a little bit more chickens in my presentation compared to the other species. So today I'm going to talk about the FAMs and the platform master files. That's how I'll refer to them. I won't be saying VPTMFs all the time. Yes, so the goal of my presentation is to provide an overview of vaccine antigen master files and the vaccine platform master files, highlighting their roles in streamlining vaccine development and fostering innovation and regulatory approval processes. So I'll first talk about FAMs, and the second part will be about the platform files, and then in the end I will have some conclusions on both. So first of all, what is a VAMP, Vaccine Antigen Master File? So VAMP is a comprehensive dossier that contains all the detailed information about a specific antigen used in a vaccine production. It includes all the details on the production process, its properties, the characterization, as well as the quality control measures. Everything which you would normally have in your vaccine dossier, but this is then a standalone dossier which only contains information on the antigen itself. Well, the purpose is to provide a centralized, standardized set of data that can be referenced by multiple vaccine applications that use the same antigen. And the benefits are that you can accelerate your regulatory approval, and it ensures also the quality by centralizing data on a specific antigen. So yeah, examples of a VAMF. So a VAMF can be used for authorizing new fallout or build-up vaccines containing the same antigen without needing a full reassessment of the antigen data. For a combined vaccine containing multiple antigens, a separate VAMF is required for each antigen. An inclusion of an already certified VAMF in a vaccine application is considered a variation not requiring assessment. So it does not affect the properties of the finished product, that is. So the data requirement for a VAMF, as I said, it's similar to what you would also provide if you would submit an application for a vaccine dossier with a certain antigen. So you have your product description, the description of your manufacturing method, the starting materials you describe, your manufacturing process, control tests, you have batch consistency data, stability data. So all these sections you would also normally address in a vaccine dossier, but now it has, as I said, its own dossier, which really concentrates on the antigen information itself. So the VAMP should provide information on the target animal species for which certification is sought. TZ and extraneous agents risk assessments must also be included where applicable, of course. And for genetically engineered products, details on the construction, genetic stability and characteristics of the modified organisms must also be provided. So if you look at the advantages and the challenges of a VAMP, so first of all, advantages, so that faster regulatory approval. So it can streamline the review process of new vaccines containing a VAMP, providing the centralized validated data. It also enhances quality control, ensures consistency and high quality targets across vaccine batches. And an operational efficiency and risk mitigation is also an advantage. reduces duplication efforts. It allows focus on innovation and production. And it also mitigates evolving extraneous agents testing and protects authorized seeds and antigens. I think that's an important one to mention as well. A challenge that we see is setup and maintenance complexity. It does require significant upfront effort and time and resources to compile the data and prepare the separate dossiers. And you have also separate procedures. So in post-approval process can be complex, requiring multiple variations. So if you have a change on your antigen master file, and then any vaccine dossier that also refers to this file then also needs to be updated as well. So these are things that you should take into consideration as well. Then moving on to the vaccine platform technology master file, another beautiful chicken. So again, what is a VPTMF? So a platform file is a file containing the comprehensive data of a vaccine platform's manufacturing, quality control, stability, safety, efficacy. And once a platform file was certified, the data already approved in the platform file does not need to be resubmitted for subsequent products. And this allows for the omission and reduction of data requirements in future dossiers. So the purpose is, I think, very clear. It's reduced data resubmission and reevaluation and requirements for subsequent vaccines. And the benefits, it saves time and costs. It can accelerate vaccine availability. And also very important to mention is that it supports 3 Rs. So you can reduce the number of in vivo studies that you need to perform. So examples of platform files. So it's a collection of technologies that have in common the use of a backbone carrier or a vector that is modified with the different active substance or set of active substances for each vaccine derived from the platform. Examples are protein-based platforms, DNA-based vaccine platforms, or mRNA replicons. And then you also have viral and bacterial vector vaccines. So these are examples of platform that you can use for such a file. So if you look at the data requirements, they can vary depending on the type of platform. But in general, you will have your quality documentation, which includes the information about the expression system, the gene of interest, the manufacturing process, starting materials, basically your part 2, right? And then your safety documentation for the initial construct, and that would have then the maximum active substance content per dose, and your efficacy documentation, also the efficacy data for the initial construct, and then you will have, of course, your minimum dose, minimum active substance content per dose studies in there as well. So also looking at the advantages and challenges of a platform file. I think the advantages are that you can streamline your regulatory pathway. It facilitates faster regulatory approvals, providing comprehensive and standardized dossier for platform technologies. It ensures also uniformity in vaccine quality and safety across various vaccines developed using the same platform. And it can accelerate your development. So it reduces time and resources needed for developing new vaccines. So by using the pre-existing platform technology data, which fosters innovation in vaccine development. And yeah, again, I think the challenge is also the initial setup. It requires substantial upfront effort, time, effort, and resource to compile these data. I think compared with the VAMF, I think this requires more investment than the antigen master file. So that's something that should also be taken into consideration. So if you look at then the overall conclusions on the antigen master files and the platform master files. Yeah, so key points. I think that VAMs and the platform master files are critical tools. They are essential frameworks in the modern vaccine development landscape. I think that both offer significant advantages, including streamlined regulatory pathways, enhanced quality control, and increased efficiency in resource utilization. Well, I said the challenges are the setup complexity and the investment in time and effort that you need to do to have these files separately registered. I think the importance of the files in vaccine development, so the efficiency gains, the master files can considerably reduce the time required to develop and approve new vaccines, which is especially critical during health emergencies like pandemics. Quality and safety assurance, I think they ensure also consistent quality and safety across the different vaccines. So maintaining high standards. And it facilitates innovation. So by removing redundant efforts and centralizing data, the master files both allow researchers and manufacturers to focus more on innovation and less on repetitive documentation. If you look at the future, I see that there's a potential to integrate farms and platforms with emerging vaccine technologies, and that this can further accelerate vaccine development. Also looking at global standardization by improved standardization and harmonization at the global level can enable quicker and more consistent response to health crises. And pandemic preparedness and response with the foundational data already in place, a rapid vaccine development and deployment can be achieved more effectively during pandemics. And if you're looking at next steps, investment in resources. So I think stakeholders should be encouraged to invest in the initial setup and maintenance of these farms and platform files to leverage the full benefits. You can also think about strategic partnerships, of course, safeguarding proprietary information. There's, I think, an opportunity to engage in strategic partnerships with regulatory bodies and trusted industry partners. I think what is also important is that we should continue to update and improve these master files to keep pace with the technological advancements and evolving regulatory requirements. I think this was in short what I wanted to say about these files, and I'm happy to answer questions from the floor and online. Yeah.
Thank you, Klaas, for the presentation and certainly for the last slides where you highlight, the benefits and challenges. About the challenges, would you expect that following submissions will be easier to do now that you've established the format and knowing that that is acceptable to the authorities in the way that you've done it? And how are you going to share that information with the other colleagues of the other industry?
Yeah, no, I think for us it was, when we started this, we were looking how to do this. So we had pre-submission meetings because initially we were not sure how to compile such a file. And I think with the pre-submission meetings already put us more in the right direction. The question rounds, it got more in the shape where we ended up with how to share that information. It's but I think it's really depending on the type of platform as well. We've now worked on it's been published on our Innovax platform. That was a platform that we already use for existing vaccines. And there, for us, there was a challenge how to prepare this file. I think during the questions, we were kind of initially surprised about the amount of questions, as we thought, well, this is an established platform that we already have vaccines registered with the same platform. But in the end, we got more the understanding why certain questions were asked and how to put it into perspective. And I think if you look at a platform file now, you should see it more as in that file, it's clear what your prerequisites are for, if you submit a vaccine dossier referring to this platform, that you know upfront what data you need to provide to get certain data omission. And I think that's the big benefit of having the platform files. For the VAMs, I think it's much more straightforward. That's information that you would normally have in your vaccine dossier anyway. And now it's just set alone as a standard dossier itself. So I think for the platform file, I think now for our next vaccine that we will bring to the market using the same technology, we already know, okay, these are the boundaries we have to work within. This is the data that we need to provide to get certain data omissions. I think that's the big gain that you can get from those files.
Okay, I'm looking at Noemi. She's not looking at me, but make her look at me right now. From our side, how was that experience with the first vaccine antigen master files and platform technology master files?
Well, it was a very interesting experience. No, it was a learning curve, I would say, a learning experience for all parts involved. And I think it was very important for us and for you to have the pre-submission meetings to go through the whole process, because it was brand new. And I think in this case, probably, and Christine also know, because he was very much involved, it was probably the most difficult part was to decide what should be part of the platform, what we should leave out, because then, you have to be very sure that that's the fixed combination you want to have in your next vaccines. So, of course, we went through the process, and I think it was pre-submission meeting, and it was then the assessment. And, of course, during the assessment, it was the company preparing the dossier and following, as much as they could the discussion. And then it was the CVMP experts also learning to assess that platform and again decided what should be part of that or no. I think the question, there were quite a few questions. There will be probably less with time because companies will learn, the CVMP experts will learn, and we will learn. So we very much recommend any company that wants to use it, because at the end, I think it was a good outcome. No, it was a successful story, and we are having more and more coming, and we see more and more. So we are learning, and we have more experience. But I would advise industry to come and have a pre-submission meeting with us. I think is helpful for both sides. And if it's necessary and it could be done, we could have a pre-submission meeting before eligibility, as we should probably if there's no previous experience from the company. And then another pre-submission meeting with the rapporteur and the co-rapporteur teams once they are allocated, because then it's even more bespoke advice. But it was really interesting, and I think it was a good example of a successful implementation of a new regulatory tool. So I hope it's being used more and more.
Yeah, I fully agree. I think it was. I think we will learn together during this procedure. I think the discussions that we had most internally before we started was indeed what is the platform, and initially you think, okay, this is this is the platform, it should be easy to answer. But while we were preparing the dossier, that was initially for us quite difficult. Okay, what do we want to make part of the file? What should not be in? What do we? So I think initially we added a lot more to the file if you compared what we ended up with. And I think that was the dialogue that we had, that we came towards the understanding what we should put in the file and what not. So yeah, I think that was also for us a nice learning curve, and I had the feeling that it was a good dialogue that we had together.
Okay, any questions from the room on this topic? If not, then I move to the Slido questions. So I've got some questions here in the Slido, and I've been instructed to read out the highlighted question first, and I follow instructions. The first question is the highlighted one. Besides the specific definition present on the current regulations for platform technology master files, are EMA authorities considering a similar approach to a standardized manufacturing steps that can be used on the manufacturing of several products? And I don't know on the human side, but certainly on the veterinary side, I'm not aware of this at all. And I don't think it's covered currently by the veterinary platform technology definition. So, but it could be an interesting topic to discuss, and it could lead to innovation, even though I still try to conceptualize in my head how that would work and where you could actually use it.
Looking at the platform file, that does cover part of it, right? And then I think that's maybe something that you then could consider. What do you want to make part of a platform farm? If you want to keep it very small, with just having manufacturing steps in there, I don't know if that's an option that you really focus on that part in your platform file.
Yeah, the way I read this question is that standardized manufacturing steps, could be culture, inactivation, are being recognized, and then you can use them for any microorganism that you consider to be similar or equivalent. And I think that's one step too far at this moment, maybe a few steps too far.
It's very broad, right?
But maybe the question is intended in a different way, I don't know. Frederick, from a distance, he's trying to influence us. We've been a bit disappointed to see the revised EP Chapter 5, Set 2.7, which will complicate the implementation of the vaccine platform, of the veterinary platform technology master file. Certainly those based on live vaccines. We will be working with EDQM on this, but has EMA or CVMP any opinion on this? And unfortunately, Javier Pozo, who's working with the European, he's member of Group 15V, is currently not in the meeting. I think he could have been. Frederick, we park this question and we'll come back to it. Okay, will there be guidance available taking into account experience with the initial applicants? And here I turn again to Noemi.
I would say yes, if we think it's necessary. At the moment, there are guidance and guidelines. There are scientific guidelines and procedural guidance produced by CVMP. But of course, that was before having experience, going through the assessment. So it was, trying to help as much as possible with the process for both sides, for industry and the regulators. But of course, if we see that there is a need for an update, and especially the procedural update, it will be done. It will be easier done. At the moment, we are collecting experience. And yes, I will say, I don't know when, but if we consider it's necessary, yes. And if we have feedback from industry, obviously saying that it's necessary, yes, it can be done.
Okay, thank you. The next question, I'm not sure it has been addressed. Can the platform file be submitted and approved ahead of the marketing authorization? And for that, I would like to turn to Christina, please.
Thank you, and good morning, everyone. No, it cannot. That's as you know, the definition of a platform technology master file is in Annex 2 of the regulation. And there in that section, it says that a full dossier is required for the first product from a manufacturer based on a particular platform technology. So we have to have the full dossier to assess the very first one. In the procedural guidance that Noemi was just mentioning, there is also the option to submit a standalone platform technology master file application, but that is when the products have already been approved. It's for existing products. So there is no possibility to approve a platform without any dossier having been reviewed by us before that. Thank you.
I would like to ask you all to be back here 1:30 the hour for the last part of this EMA Veterinary Innovation Day. See, everybody is seated here. I trust that people are connected online, and we're going to try something new here. And the fireside chat, it's quite clear. Carol and I are going to have a discussion on innovation, current status, future, experience. And the idea to do this actually was during VICH meeting last November, when Karel, at the end of his presentation, made some strong statements, and I was the next speaker. And I would have loved to enter into a debate at that point in time, Karel, but we were limited by the program. So we thought, why not organize it here? And Karel and I are both Dutch. We're quite direct. So let's see how this works out for this specific occasion. I hope you enjoy it. I trust you can all see us on the screens. And otherwise, if you want to see us live, there's still room here so people can move in. And with that, Karel, let's kick off.
Thank you, and thank you for inviting me. It's getting hot already because it has two functions, this thing. Thanks, Ivo. I'm going to start off very nice and easy with you. Oh, sorry, just in case some of you don't know me, my name is Karel Dimitri-Savas. I work for Health for Animals, which is the global association for animal medicine. So we represent the the 10 largest companies, and then about 200 smaller companies through our national associations throughout the world. And I will maybe now and then come back to the global aspect, but clearly most of it's a European aspect today. So start off easy with you, Ivo. What is innovation? How would you define innovation?
Well, in one single sentence, that won't be easy. But we've had now the yesterday afternoon and this morning discussing innovation, and I always like to see it in two different ways. One is the technical part of innovation, where you look at new manufacturing methods, new products, possibly new ways of treatment, personalized medicines. There's all sorts of things that can happen on that side. And then, of course, technical innovation can only take place if it is paired with the right regulatory framework. So regulatory innovation may be needed for that as well. We recognized that when we were working on the Annex 2 for the regulation 2019-6, where we said novel therapies, novel technologies, we don't know what will be coming our way. And taking the liberty of saying we can pick and choose from whatever we have in terms of requirements and make sure that we can support technical innovation in that way. But that's, for me, is innovation in the sense that we would like to see new technologies to the market, new products, either coming from the human side to the veterinary side or from the veterinary side to the human side, that will have more options for therapy for diseases. Hence, what we tried to discuss yesterday, the combination with unmet medical needs. But my question to you, Karel, because looking back over the past 7 years since we had that last Innovation Day, and having listened to the discussions over the past 2 days, would you say the industry has delivered on innovation?
Well, that's a surprise question. Now, I think yes. And I'm going to give some examples later on. I think we have delivered, but maybe not in the areas that we were just talking earlier about 7 years ago, in the areas that you thought or expected there would be innovation. Or maybe not as much in those areas. But maybe let me make a few comments about innovation in general. Everybody loves innovation, but if you can't make money out of innovation, and I'm saying that that sounds and comes across very harshly, but that is the reality. Innovation for the sake of innovation is not our purpose as companies. And there are intellectually and scientifically many different innovations or technologies or approaches are extremely exciting, but commercially unattractive. And that's always the balance that we as companies are looking at, is coming up with new innovations which are commercially also attractive. We take calculated risks, and sometimes we lose in those risks. There are many vaccines which have been developed over the many years, which have never given returns on investment, likewise with some other types of products. And I think one of the things that's really important to remember is building a brand for a product, for an innovation, takes a lot of time and a lot of money. And that, so that careful weighing of going through, should we continue with a product, an innovation which we've developed? Should we make that into a product? Should we put that on the market? Where should we put it on the market? That's very, very carefully weighed in companies. You mentioned yesterday, and I'm just looking at my cheat sheet here, some areas on the slide. New antimicrobials. Yes, there is still ongoing R&D happening in that, large and small companies. But we have to be very honest. The political signal on their potential use in the future is a massive disincentive. Yes, we're all looking for the holy grail of that new antimicrobial, but it's very, very challenging to actually argue internally in companies we should continue with that innovation, particularly in light of that other opportunities in companies. Alternatives to antibiotics. Now, we don't like that phrase, alternatives to antibiotics. We never use it because we don't think there are any alternatives to antibiotics. There are only products or things you can do to avoid the use or minimize the use of antibiotics. There is research, and there is significant research continuing in that area, large and small companies. I'm hopeful that there will be things coming to market. Another one was areas, gene therapies, for example. Gene therapy in our sector, what I've been told, is actually only really attractive for certain species, horses, where you really have a high value possibility. If commercially, in other smaller species, much more complicated to argue, we should develop a product there. But there are lots of products, and here's my, I wrote down a little list. If you look at the pet side, for example, on innovations, you see that the parasiticide segment is expanding very quickly, as you well know. All of the products coming in here in this market, other markets, dermatology products, pain products, cardiology, oncology, renal products, either there or coming. A lot of research going in there. Monoclonal antibodies. I was told there were 4 already right now. And then disease, and again on the pet side, chronic diseases, treatments for chronic diseases, and even things like medicated pet feed, which doesn't go through, or maybe does go through EMA. And then on the livestock side, likewise, there's a lot. But one I want to pull out: methane vaccines coming, methane additives there. Okay, not EMA. HPAI cattle vaccines, very current subject, coming there. A whole battery of vaccines. So there is innovation, but it's in areas. Most of those products brought to market will be in areas where the return. There's also innovation in other areas like AI, the use of AI and I know you're looking at that very much at EMA, but also AI in how we develop our products in the R&D process, telemedicine, diagnostics, at-home use of diagnostics tools, the digital offerings, again, maybe not EMA, traceability, remote monitoring, all of these types of areas. There's a lot of innovation happening there. I just came back, as we were talking about yesterday morning, from Brazil, where traceability of beef is very important for all kinds of reasons. There's a lot of innovation happening there as well. So not all of them go through EMA, but there is a lot of innovation happening. But let me go back to you and ask you a easy question. So we've got the new regulation. Well, I don't know if we can still call it new. It's been a couple of years now. And one of the aims of that regulation was to reduce administrative burden and support and stimulate innovation. Now, do you think that's happening? Do you think it's delivering on that promise of trying to make it easier to bring innovation to market or to reduce administrative burden for those who want to bring innovation to market?
Yeah, that's 2 questions in one. So let me look at it. Indeed, the intention, the objectives of the regulation have been reduction of the risk of AMR, promote innovation, having equal market opportunities, and the reduction of admin burden as a sort of spin-off there. On the reduction of admin burden, I would say that yes, it has delivered to some extent. For example, in pharmacovigilance, we do hope that with the abolishment of PSURs, we can make steps forward there, and that in the end will reduce admin burden. Not necessarily work per se, because a lot of the responsibilities are now being put on the marketing authorization holder, and there's less role for the competent authorities. They provide oversight. Variations not requiring assessment, that also leading to a reduction in admin burden. We do know about the challenges that we see with individual member states, but I think that's to be resolved in the future as well. Innovation is a bit more complex. I think the framework is there. It's been built with the intention to promote innovation, if we now look at indeed opportunities for innovative products and and the actual implementation of the regulation, it's a bit more complex than we anticipated. And I remember that Rick Clayton warned for that as well. You know, it's all in the implementation, and it shows. So there's two elements. There's the way that we try to implement it with CVMP and in the agency, and increasingly the feedback that we're getting from the Commission as well on the legal interpretation of the regulation, which creates challenges and where we see that it creates hopefully temporary obstacles for innovation that we can resolve in due time. So it's there. On the going back to the reduction of admin burden and also the smoothing out regulatory processes. We had the commissioner visiting the agency. He clearly stated that the agency and the network should do whatever possible within the given regulatory framework to see where we can contribute to the competitiveness of Europe in that sense. And what he meant there is, can we provide more support? Can we smoothen out processes? Can we make the whole system more lean and mean, so to say? And I think that's a clear objective that we should be working on as well. And then I mentioned yesterday also the different initiatives, the Draghi report, you know, that identifies issues where I feel from the side of the Commission and the network, we should see where we can support that competitiveness agenda. I mentioned it myself already, but to you, Karel, what are the blockers to innovation that industry still perceives in the new regulation? And what would be required, in your view, to improve the opportunities for innovation? And maybe on top of that, what do you see could be real incentives for the industry to innovate? You mentioned money and market as one of them. Are there potentially other incentives that you can think of?
Yeah. I'm glad you brought up the visit of, I thought, I didn't realize the commissioner had been here. I thought Dr. Cook went to Brussels, but
it was a very short visit.
Okay. But I did note what she wrote after that, and I actually, as you said, she wrote, simplify regulatory processes and boost EU innovation, and that's the gist of what I'm going to say now. So if we look at, to your question, if we look at what are blockers for innovation or moving things through the system, I've got examples, but I think the examples fall into two buckets. Bucket one is not for you, and I'll come back to that. But bucket one is for the European Commission, and bucket one is a very legalistic, sometimes a bit rigid interpretation of the regulation. I'll come back to that. Bucket two may be more in your court here at EMA, and that's really looking at some of the guidelines, which, however well intended they are, sometimes do have unintended disincentivizing effects. Sorry for that phrase. And I'll give you an example. The dung flora guideline, which for those who are unaware of it, such as myself, basically means that if we follow that guideline to the letter, it will fail. So a lot of companies have said, well, that's so problematic, we're not going to follow that. It's been stalled in the past in CVMP in 2016. It's now come back. There are also areas where there's lacking guidance, I think. Aqua may be one of them, where we think if there would be guidance, that would be useful. But let me come back to the first bucket, which is, I think, regulation, which has the unintended effect of being disincentivizing for innovation, for starting innovation. Zootechnical purposes, the definition of that is a great example. What if we could expand that beyond just reproductive and look at that also in terms of products that could cover sustainability type indications? That would open up a lot of interesting opportunities. We mentioned conditional licensing, and I wrote down very carefully what you said yesterday, Ivo. Not as firmly embedded as we'd like it. We have products which come onto the market in the United States 3-4 years earlier because of conditional licensing. That's a real opportunity. So how can we look at the emergency authorization approach and widen the interpretation of that? And then to the second part of your question, which is what can be done. So I think a more flexible approach in sometimes rather legalistic interpretations from the people in the other big capital to the south of this country. And this is a commission responsibility. We are now in a time where you have the president of the commission, you've got the Draghi report, you've got the competitiveness compass. There's a simplification agenda. Let's look together with the commission, with EMA, with industry, with the member states if needed, at how we can facilitate that agenda. Animal Health Europe, our European association, has on their website produced a very nice little proposals for a competitive European veterinary medicine sector simplification package. That's the first list of kind of things that could be done. But wouldn't it be a good idea? And I think Rafaela suggested a little bit earlier, if we could sit down in a room and say, these are the actual things which are slowing, which are leading to decisions in companies, large and small, which are limiting or pushing our decisions toward a no, we're not going to put that on the market. Sometimes for unmet needs, mostly for unmet needs, I would say. And say, what is that hurdle? What is that interpretation that we could change? I've been in Brussels for 30 years. Mostly, I'm in a global job now, Ivo. But before that, I was in European jobs. We all know that there are multiple interpretations possible of Brussels regulation. And I think if we could all together, with the help of EMA, look at those blockers and see if we could find ways around them or interpretations which would work better to move forward the innovation agenda. I think that would be my call. Maybe step one would be, and I like the presentation we had in the previous session on the innovation task force. Maybe step one would be to say, why don't we do a small analysis? We would be happy to work on that, of what those internal reasons are for not moving something through or not putting a product and not continuing a product into the regulatory process. So that would be my suggestion. Sit down, do a small analysis, sit down with the Commission, with EMA, maybe with the member states and industry, and start that analysis, see how we can overcome some of those blockers.
You did mention as one of those disincentives, so to say, the strict legal interpretation of the regulation. Do you see other disincentives?
Well, I mean, again, if you think in categories, I think, and I'm going to come back to that later, but regulatory, political, market, those are, and market is again, I have a global role, so market, we look at markets very much for certain types of products, very much from a global perspective. Sometimes you have to, people develop products, companies develop products with global perspective in mind, at least many of the companies that I represent. I know smaller companies, maybe just for a specific sector, that's fine, but I think that's one perspective. But let me come back to what I think. Well, let me ask you a question. I'll come back to that other point later. You talked about it earlier. Human health, animal health. We're a very small sector compared to human health, and we sometimes come across situations where somebody says, "Oh, that's how we do it in human health, so we're going to do it in animal health like that." We like that sometimes. We don't like it other times. It's a little bit challenging in that sense, but they are different sectors. Are there learnings from human health that when you are here in the agency and you see, okay, that's how they've done it in the human health assessment process, those are things that we can apply to the animal side, or to the assessment of the animal innovations or products? So what can you take from the human side, and what should you leave from the human product assessment and apply to our area?
No, thanks for that question. I think it particularly shows in innovative products, in innovation. When we had the first stem cell products, for example, that knowledge was not necessarily there in the veterinary side, and stem cell products had been assessed on the human side. So we went to see. We have internally, of course, in the agency, people that have been involved in those assessments. And in the human network, there's also that knowledge there. Same, I would say, for mRNA vaccines, where during COVID, a lot of expertise has been gathered, and where they have already invested in how to assess quality, what are the potential risks there. So for those technical developments, I think it makes sense that we look at how it has been assessed on the human side, not necessarily following it to the letter. I think we should look at the veterinary reality on that, but certainly not missing out the opportunity that we can learn from what they're doing on the human side. And I would say on the regulatory side as well, the regulation, the veterinary regulation, which went live in 2022, contains elements that we now see coming back in the proposals for the new pharma legislation. Environmental risk assessment is part of it. Variations not requiring assessment, or a simplification of the variations procedure. But at the same time, I see developments there in the new pharma legislation that we would be able to take over. The regulatory sandbox is one of those concepts that I feel is being tested on the human side, where we have never even proposed it or ever looked at it as a realistic option that could assist in supporting innovation. So there's a lot to be learned from both sides. And when we have to establish ad hoc expert groups, where we have to re-examine, for example, a CVMP opinion, we very often involve human experts also to get an unbiased approach into that. So I think that works very well on both sides. I must say that the humans, we call them the humans, don't very often look at what we're doing. So most recent example is that they came up with the brilliant proposal to develop guidelines for platform technology master files.
Who would have thought of that?
And where I had to tell them, are you aware, colleagues in-house, that we have developed and adopted the guideline for platform technology master files? And they were not. So it shows that communication also is key. Yesterday, the question was asked about One Health. We should, in principle, be a One Health agency, I would say. But you don't feel it everywhere. It's not being recognized everywhere. And that's where One Health can drive also that crossover between human and veterinary. Coming back to what you said before, because you sketched a picture where Europe is not the right place for innovation. That's what I understood. Some products go into the market earlier in the US, conditional licensing as one of the things. But I'm wondering, is this really the case? If you look at other factors that may influence it, the predictability of the regulatory system in Europe, the predictability of timelines that you're confronted with, how would you compare the European Union as a place to launch innovation compared to other regions?
I speak with a strange American accent, but I am a Dutchman. Now, I mean, let's be clear. The European Union for our products is a very predictable, let me rephrase that. The regulatory process here is extremely predictable. There are timelines, can't be said for every other agencies, other markets. Interaction with EMA is easy and good and positive and productive. There are many, many useful tools. I even learned of a few tools in the last 24 hours, which I didn't know. Early inquiries, pipeline portfolio meetings, the SME office, scientific advice, ITF, of course, innovation data, this Horizon Scan. These are all very useful tools, I think, for us, large and small companies, to have interaction with EMA. And as I said, the outcome of that process is usually quite predictable. On a more political point, I think we talked about this. There is a simplification agenda, a political simplification agenda. People on the other side of the Atlantic would call it deregulation. I'm not calling it deregulation. I'm calling it simplification. There are opportunities to look at the regulations, to look at the application of them, at the guidelines, to see how we can improve. So, and there are some things which are negative in this market. The political and societal and rather legal view on the use of biotechnology is problematic and is a disincentive, not just for our industry, but for others as well. And I can guarantee you, if you do an analysis of that process, of what stops or what are motivators to not bring something to market, that will feature in there. But that's something from a decade ago, and hopefully that will change. Maybe some other reflections in other markets. Size of market is important. So the United States is a big market, but Europe is as well. And that is certainly from a just purely market return perspective, a very interesting or important consideration. Maybe some observations about other agencies. EMA is very well resourced and professional. Not all agencies are well resourced. As well resourced, and that's an issue for us in some markets. I was traveling recently, and the country I was traveling to, there's a resource issue there, where we have a big backlog of products. Other agencies currently have some major challenges. EMA, I think, if you look at all of the agencies, not just EMA, but also the general process here is predictable. There is maybe more rigidity in the regulation itself and more flexibility in the agency. And maybe it's the other way around, where in other countries where there might be some more conservatism in the actual application in other countries of the rules. So you may have come away with the impression that I'm negative about launching innovation now here in Europe. No, my job is to make sure that anything that we can improve, push for, gets even better. And you've heard my plea for a kind of common identification of what the challenges are and what the hurdles are and what the blockers are, and to see if we can address those, EMA and the political side together. But let me, I'll leave it at that. I think I should leave it at that.
The question would be the quality of the output. We didn't mention that. You say it's transparent, it's predictable. Do you perceive that the regulatory network does have the right expertise, brings the right science to the table when we're looking at innovative products?
Yeah, it's always a challenge, I think, to find. Certainly when you have real new innovations and new products, to find the right experts. I mean, and that's not just the case in Europe. I think also in the States or in other markets, you will have that challenge. But I don't think it's worse here. It might even be better here in terms of finding the right expertise to assess products and to move it forward through the process. Yeah, I don't think that's a major blocker.
You go ahead.
Well, I'm just looking at time, Ivo, but we've got 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Are we gonna do some questions from them?
We can do
them.
Yeah.
Sorry. Okay. I have one last question for you, and then we do that. So thank you for organizing Innovation Day. We like it. Let's continue it, please. I'm sure we have ideas of things. Have you heard anything in the last, 24 hours? How long have we been at it? Where you think this is a really good thing, and you're going to walk away with from this meeting with a positive outlook?
Well, let me be very honest. When we started organizing Innovation Day and having internal discussions, I must say that I had my doubts on whether we would deliver on the Innovation Day. Certainly, given the level of innovation that I perceived at that moment in time, that what had we achieved in the past years, and looking at the presentation that I gave yesterday, that analysis, I know that there's a lot coming our way. So I think the timing of this Innovation Day was actually quite right in liaising with industry, bringing people together, have those discussions, and I hope it's been appreciated by many. We also looked at a slightly different format than we had done before. So I'm walking away with the positive feeling that we will see innovation, technical innovation, coming our way in the coming years. That we need to deal with as regulators and industry jointly. That it will increase therapeutic options for animals in general, and will fill in some currently unmet medical needs. I'm walking away with the idea that yes, maybe we should look more into what regulatory flexibility do we have? How can we bring regulatory innovation also to the table? Because I think that's needed as well. So overall, I'm positive. But how about you, Karel?
Me too. I'm positive. No, I'm. Industry will continue to innovate. We will continue to put, to try and develop products for unmet needs and for met needs. Competitive products. We'll continue to do that. I think we have a very good relationship, a very professional agency. We have, as I said, some need for some more flexibility in interpretation of regulation. I'm not calling, just to be very clear, for new regulation. And that's very much in the spirit of the time, simplification. Let's work together to do this. I also think that when just coming back to unmet needs, we need to look at different models as well. Why are some products or things not being developed to meet unmet needs? I think partly it's the financial argument, the return on investment argument. That can be made more attractive. I'm thinking of innovative tools like maybe a tax status, that if you meet an unmet need, that you get a special tax status for that, or on that product, or on the revenues of that product. That might be an idea. I'm not arguing for no taxes, by the way. Or co-financing with public or other entities. If there is an unmet need, can there be formulas or ways to work together? So I think some more innovation in that type of thinking, how we can address unmet needs, analyzing why they're not being met in some cases, how we can address those. And then, as I said, I think being aware that there are innovations in companies which get killed. And they get killed not because they don't work, they do work. It's simply that the route to market, and part of that route to market is the regulatory process, is too difficult, complex, or unpredictable. I think if we start recognizing that, then we can address those issues where they are issues. And a lot of things have been done, as you've said and I've said. Then we can really move to an even more dynamic and fast-moving markets. So I come away very positive. I go back to Brussels this afternoon where I live. I'll carry that message to Brussels as well. I can do that easily because I have a global job, and I won't get my European colleagues into trouble for that, but I can do that. So thank you very much for organizing this, and I come away positive from feeling about the environment for innovation.
Okay, thanks. Time for question from the audience. If anything. Johan, please.
Yes, I have a question to Karel. You mentioned that some of the CVMP guidelines are perceived as problematic, and you gave one example, that was the dung fauna guideline. I wasn't aware of that, actually. And what we do in the CVMP when we develop guidelines, we have a concept paper that goes out for consultation. So industry can be involved there. Then we develop the actual guideline. It's also open for consultation. So there are process where we can have your input. But when the guideline is out there and you get the experience, and then it's found out that there are problematic elements in guidelines, it would be good for us to know that.
Yeah.
So my question is, can you then please reach out to the agency, because it would be a shame that if you have problems with certain guidelines and we wouldn't know it.
Yeah, so that's a good question. In this case, we will reach out and we might have a few other things, but we have to just organize ourselves a little bit to say which ones are systematically problematic. This is one I was told is. But I think it also has to do with the sensitivity of which ones are problematic for individual companies and which ones are problematic for, and that's, of course, the association's job is to figure that out. So we will do that. Thank you.
I'm sorry. I'm here.
Oh, yeah.
I have a question for Carol. That's okay. You know, you mentioned the US, Europe a lot, but a lot of the innovation, and at the end of the day, this is a meeting about innovation, comes from China or even India. And their presence is very limited. It's something that, you know, we had the VICH meeting, but I don't see them as a strong players, whilst I heard from the industry that they are very important for you. But how do you see them as new players into the area with new products, even new companies coming to Europe or to the US? Thank you.
I host once or twice a year a group of about 100 Chinese CEOs who do a tour, and I think they come here as well, or they go to some agencies around Europe. Yes, there are innovations. I think there are different cultural understandings of the regulatory process. I always find myself having to spend a lot of time explaining what EMA is and why we have those procedures and processes. You know, sometimes in those meetings, you know, they go in saying, "Oh, we're gonna come to EMA with all these products," and then you know, years later, I discover that there are very few, or if any, which have gone through, and that's a cultural thing, I think, in many ways. The regulatory process in China is the same as in any country, you know, but I think it's more complex to look at, for them to look at different markets and to discover also what they think they could bring to market here. If you look at the largest 25 animal health companies around the world, there's only one Chinese company there. There are 3 Japanese companies there. There are, I think, 6 or 7 or 8 European companies there, if not more. I don't know off the top of my head. So I think that says a lot. Their focus is predominantly in China and the local market there. It's more complex for them to get stuff to market here. Maybe they need some help there.
I would like to add and correct it a little bit, Carol. To my experience, there's quite a bit growing interest in Asia, and there are certain markets. Of course, it's always the big step to go into EU GMP manufacturing for their products if they have set up their local GMP. So that's a big step for anybody wanting to enter the EU. But there is definitely interest, I would say, in certain markets like Korea, Japan, growing in Taiwan.
Yes, probably even about Chinese companies.
I know, but I just wanted to add there are other markets than China. The Chinese, I would share your view. But the other markets, it would certainly help also if we get kind of further mutual recognition agreements or anything alike in place and share our view how we do it. I think there is opportunities.
We're very supportive of the VSCH process, as you know, and are constantly, and now Rick Clayton has retired now, but he's still continuing to do some work on VSCH. We're constantly trying to pull in the regulators and the companies from those markets into those processes. And VSCH fulfills 2 functions, not just harmonization, but also, you know, having these discussions and talking to each other and understanding each other, both regulators and companies, I think, so that we strongly encourage that, yeah. Thank you.
I see no further questions from the room, so I would like to thank you very much, Carol, and I think we can end this discussion.
I've heated up a lot
very
now,
good,
so thank you very much.
Very good, and we'll do this again sometime.
Thank you very much, Ivo, and thank you for organizing, to you and your staff for organizing the Innovation Days. Thank you very much.
No, thank you. I now have the thankful task to try and wrap up the past days, and I don't have my notes in front of me, but so I would like to do it in a quite simple way. As I said, we designed this Innovation Day with the idea to take stock of what innovation we've seen over the past years and try to look forward on what innovation will come our way, but also what is needed to facilitate the innovation. I think we've seen it from different angles through the different presentations, and we brought in some new elements that we didn't do before, like the panel discussion and this little fireside chats, looking at new formats and make it more lively, more interesting for all of you. As I just said to Karel, I look back at an interesting meeting. I hope we've succeeded in keeping it interesting for you as well. And I hope you all can take, some key messages home with you. And I think the key message is, yes, there is a good perspective for innovation in veterinary medicinal products. The need is there for these products. There are incentives and there are some disincentives that we recognize. But I think we can work on that and see what can be done within the given regulatory framework and how we can progress it. And in addition to what I mentioned yesterday, the ambitions of the European Commission, the Biotech Act, the increased interest in making Europe more competitive, which we all recognize, I think that will be a major driver to also further promote innovation and forces us to look in how can we facilitate it better than we are currently doing. And I think that could benefit patients, animal owners, industry, but also regulators in rethinking how we do things, but also in supporting that innovation through building our expertise that is needed for these new technologies. And with that, I would like to close this Innovation Day formally. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for the people online for also active participation in the discussions. And I hope to see you all in 7 years at the next Innovation Day.